During the whole coronavirus pandemic, we have seen airlines both large and small and both premium and full service carriers struggle this year. At Singapore Airlines, 2020 has been no different from its other counterparts, with its struggles making the international aviation headlines. While Singapore Airlines has faced some challenges in the past, the Singaporean-flag carrier is currently facing the biggest crisis in its history. A few weeks back, Singapore Airlines made the headlines with an announcement of plans to reduce over 4,300 positions across the airlines, including Singapore Airlines, Scoot, and Silk Air. As part of this effort, Singapore Airlines will be offering early departure schemes and freezing recruitment to reduce the number of staff being affected by the cuts to around 2,400. For many, this isn't really much of a surprise, as since March the airline has entered unprecedented times. In its own announcement regarding the cuts, Singapore Airlines does acknowledge its main weakness, which is the lack of a domestic market, which this problem has been further exacerbated by travel restrictions imposed by other countries, with some of the toughest travel restrictions imposed by its neighboring ASEAN states. As a result, the combined travel restrictions globally, Singapore Airlines has cut capacity by more than 90% since March compared to the same time period in 2019. While operating minimal flights throughout its network, the airline has grounded much of its fleet, with some of its aircraft being sent to Australia, specifically Alice Springs, including its Airbus A380 Super Jumbos, which some now are questioning with the future of the aircraft with the airline and others around the world. Now, it's been nearly 6 months since the flights have been suspended for the most part, and since then Singapore has been taking steps to gradually ease local quarantine measures and travel restrictions. This is so far offering Singapore Airlines a bit of a reprieve, though it is going to be planning to operate around 11% of its overall network by the end of November of this year. Still, with the majority of its flights grounded, the Singapore government has stepped in to provide much needed funding. In March, it was reported by the Straits Times that the airline was going to get around 15 billion Singapore dollars with the support of majority owner Temasek Holdings. So far, it's been reported that Singapore Airlines has received 11 billion Singapore dollars plus an additional 750 million Singapore dollars in late July. However, with the prolonged effects of the coronavirus pandemic, the airline is still bleeding cash, spending over 8.8 billion Singapore dollars to cover its expenses. For Singapore Airlines, this will be the biggest amount of job cuts it will see in its airline's history. Prior to this, in 2003, during the SARS epidemic, Singapore Airlines cut around 600 jobs, which pales in comparison to the current situation, which will affect over 4,000. And for sure, the impact will be felt by those who are still remaining with the airline as it fights for its survival. As the personnel and executives of Singapore Airlines fights for the airline's survival, the airline's pilots have agreed to take further cuts as much as 50% off of their salaries, which is just a sobering sign of things to come. The efforts to keep Singapore Airlines in disguise has prompted so many ideas and suggestions. With a campaign similar to the Save TG campaign of Thai Airways, we now have the campaign titled Save Singapore Airlines, which is basically Singaporeans rallying for supporting their airline. Among the ideas that has been floating around has been the report surfacing that the airline is considering operating its own versions of flights to nowhere. While this has generated some interest, there are some, including environmental advocates, such as the group SG Climate Rally, which, while standing in solidarity with the airline and employees, cited their concerns that it would, quote, encourage high-carbon travel for no reason, and second was a stopgap solution that, quote, distracts from the policy and value shifts necessary to mitigate the climate crisis. In all, it is a dark and very challenging time for Singapore Airlines, and yet one positive sign is that the Singaporean government and the people of the country are rallying in support of the airline. It's hard to see why not, as the success of Singapore Airlines translates to Singapore's success as a major financial and travel hub in the region. To sum up the situation, Singapore Airlines CEO Goh Chon Fong addressed the recent challenges, stating, quote, "When the battle against COVID-19 began earlier this year, none of us could have predicted its devastating impact on the global aviation industry. From the onset, our priorities were to ensure our survival and save as many jobs as possible. Given that the road to recovery will be long and fraught, and with uncertainty, we have to unfortunately implement involuntary staff reduction measures." For Singapore Airlines and the global aviation industry, the road to recovery may take months and years. Like many of its aviation counterparts, we can expect many more tough decisions to be made. In the meantime, I definitely hope you enjoyed this video, and as sobering as it is, I definitely hope Singapore Airlines is able to survive this crisis, as it is one of those airlines that many travelers do enjoy flying with. With that said, if you like this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. In the meantime, thank you for watching and have a great day.